If fundamentally you believe that men and women deserve equal rights and equal opportunities, you are a feminist, whether you want to call yourself that or not.
Welcome to Platform Z, or Z, whichever you prefer. Join me, Noah Lennon, as I speak with my generation about a range of topics and themes in the present day. Hello, fellow humans. Thank you for tuning in to the 5th episode of the podcast. Today, I'm speaking with a talented rising actor. She started acting at the age of 5 in commercials and has since starred in short and feature-length films, as well as Beauty and the Beast at South London Theatre, which I went to see. It was very good. That's not to mention her work in music videos and animation too. Gosh, my guests have so much talent. She's a good friend of mine and an all-round kind soul. Ladies and gentlemen, Julia Westrup.
Hi. That was so beautiful, Noah. What an introduction. Thank you.
Of course, thank you for coming on. So, as you may have seen from the title, today's episode is Defining Feminism in 2025. Let's do it.
I'm excited.
Yeah, we're going to be discussing the changing attitudes towards feminism, as well as how feminism can positively develop in the future. To begin, shall we both say what feminism means to us? Julia, would you like to start us off?
What does feminism mean? The relationship with the word obviously differs from person to person. People have varying experiences with it and varying experiences using it. But for me, it has only ever been about equality and equity as well, more than anything. It's not a sort of blanket approach, giving men and women the same thing, but rather acknowledging male privilege and the patriarchy and giving women the tools that they need to match that standard. I've always advocated for radical change. I've always been quite a radical feminist. I don't really agree with this kind of white-centric liberal feminism that I think is permeating the conversation a bit too much. I've always believed in accountability and education. And I do truly believe that gender equality is crucial to the survival of the planet. Everything is a feminist issue. It's not just about women wanting safety as much as it is about that, but it is about securing a future.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think feminism can be misconstrued and misinterpreted quite easily, where a lot of people, particularly men, think that it's some kind of attack on men. I mean, for me, it's really about recognizing and championing the impact and influence that women have on our society and world.
Yeah.
It's about highlighting the female voices and female figures that are overlooked and disregarded and forgotten as a result of our historically patriarchal world.
Yeah. I'd also want to champion this idea that feminism is fighting for everyone, that there is something in it for everybody. And I'd also challenge anyone who thinks that feminism is a kind of direct attack on men. I challenge them to question what they feel attacked by, because I think that sentiment says more about them than it does about the feminist movement, because it never has been about attacking men and always been about recognition and accountability.
Yeah. And it's not to say that men can't be in power, but it's also that both men and women should both be in power.
Yeah.
That power, I guess, as a structure of who is leading the country or who is in positions that are powerful, quote unquote, positions, that has to be representative of the population and of... It is the same thing, I guess, with diversity and inclusivity. It's like you can't not represent the overwhelming female presence in this world.
Absolutely. And I think, obviously, we'll get into it in the episode, but I do kind of sometimes take issue with these kind of DEI approaches. And that's not to say I think DEI is a bad thing, but I often think it's used to kind of cover up or legitimize the actual issues that are causing women to be disproportionately represented in positions of government in the workplace. I think it's avoiding the root causes, which is poverty and barriers to education and healthcare, reproductive healthcare and child and maternity care are all barriers to women actually entering those spaces in the first place. And instead of addressing those, we're kind of just saying, well, let's just hire more women and make it look like we're doing something. And that often results in white women being overwhelmingly representative of the female population, and it often means working class or women of color are left behind.
Okay, moving forward.
Yeah.
My question would be, was there a particular event or public figure or experience that caused you to bring this topic onto the show?
I think it's less of a topic for me and more something that is fundamental to my existence in the way in which I view the planet. It's never something I'm not thinking about. So it was a kind of no-brainer for me in that sense. And it has been something I've been identifying as probably since I was about 8. I think that was when I had this first kind of sprinkling of feminism and the ability to identify sexism when I saw it or experienced it. So yeah, it was a very kind of obvious one for me. But I think particularly the last year has been a terrifying time for women as we're watching the rise of the far right and extreme misogyny and the manosphere and figures like Trump and Musk and Tate. I think a lot of women feel very, very scared.
Yeah. And on that note, I was doing research around feminism specifically this year in 2025, and how there seems, when I speak to young people around me, my friends, my female friends particularly, there seems to be almost a lack of speaking about this word feminism as if it's suddenly gone somewhere. But actually, in the time that we're in now, the age that we're in, it feels like it's more relevant than ever. And the need is so strong now that I think, or at least for me, it's something I'm really passionate about pushing and reminding people that this is here in place. Feminism as an ideology and a movement is here in place for times like this, when you have the rise of these huge figures that are misleading so much of the youth and creating this fan base, this cult following, this mob of men in particular that are rewiring their thoughts and their brains to think in a certain way that is damaging to women and is damaging to the world, full stop.
The closest feminism got was in the direct aftermath of the MeToo movement. I think that felt like a huge tectonic shift towards radical change and became so close to doing something. It happened in conjunction with Trump's first term, right? And that was kind of the conception of the manosphere. I mean, you see those kind of corners of the internet since the internet existed, but I think that's when they started really having a stake and a say in politics and the actual livelihood of women. And I think since then, there have been kind of two forces resisting the feminist movement, and that has been the rise of figures like Trump and the far right and the manosphere and anti-feminism, misogynistic movements, violence against women, and this idea that in 2016, during the MeToo movement, feminism was achieved and the job was finished. And now there is this fundamental misunderstanding of what feminism looks like. People want to believe that because on paper, I am afforded legally the same rights as you are, that equality has been achieved. And that's just simply not true. But I think there's an educational blind spot that is giving just enough space for young boys particularly to have that blind spot filled by figures like Andrew Tate. I mean, I think so much about my time in sixth form, where a lot of my lessons were in a boys' school, and how terrifying it felt to walk around a school feeling threatened by an 11-year-old boy. Because this was kind of like post-lockdown, Andrew Tate was at his peak and speaking to even teachers who were being harassed or had sexual advances made by their students, and the stuff they were hearing in the corridors and the views that these boys, literally as young as 11, were hoarding towards women. I think that for me ignited something I was maybe a bit dormant before, that didn't really feel like much of an issue. I think for so long you kind of passed the incel crowd as this kind of esoteric, shady corner of the internet, just a few lonely losers, but it's not. And I sort of watched that happen.
Wow, shocking. First and foremost, I'm sorry to hear that you felt like that. Of course, as a male, as a man, I didn't have to go through that, and I will never have that same experience that a young woman and every woman has to undergo of any age. But I'm really interested in the point around education, and particularly where social media comes in, where these young children, young boys, young men are seeing things on social media and sharing them with their peers and taking that into a classroom and taking that into a school setting, which is most likely a mixed setting with girls and women as well. And I think Adolescence as a show really touched on that well, where although that was a male story, I would say, around young men and around the incel culture, I think that still helps the movement of feminism. And I think that still helps the overall cause, because you're still shining a light on the issue, which is these huge figures on social media and this culture on social media that can destroy and influence so much of these young boys and their minds and the way they think. There's no limit. That's the issue, is that it's hard to limit these young people when they're scrolling. And of course, it's designed to be addictive, and it's designed to keep you interested and to keep you watching. So the more you watch, the more you transform and, I guess, succumb to this culture.
Yeah, I do think Adolescence did a great job at actually exposing just how severe and pressing the issue is. It was very shocking in that way. I was kind of relieved to have finally seen something like that on my TV that didn't feel too preachy. It didn't feel like it was preaching to the choir. It felt like everybody has seen Adolescence and now was kind of forced to swallow that pill of this is actually happening. But as you said, it's a very male-centered story. We hear so little about the actual girl who was stabbed in that story. And I think that's my biggest, not that I think it's a fantastic show and not that I take issue with it, but as in that is the one thing that was kind of nagging at me a bit, which is we don't really hear much about her. And I think it is great in starting that conversation. But I think if you take the word feminism out of it and you just think of it as its own separate issue, men are watching this stuff and it's translating into real life, that is a feminist issue, so let's call it what it is. I think people are so scared of the word.
Yeah, you're so right in that sense, where we need an alternative story with a female director and a female crew focusing on the female young experience, the young woman who has experienced something like that culture, that incel culture that you see on Adolescence. I think even what you're describing from that period after lockdown in school, where you felt that, I guess, discomfort and you felt that scare, that anxiety, we need to see that. Maybe it's in development, maybe someone's making it. I hope they are, but definitely that needs to be explored.
Yeah, 100%. I'd also like to finish up a point that I started earlier about this idea that in the West, feminism has been achieved. And again, this educational blind spot that feminism is fighting for global equality. And that just because here it looks like equality has been achieved, that elsewhere women are fighting battles I can barely imagine. Child marriage and FGM and religious persecution all over the world. Women are going through worse things but have less of a voice. And that's what feminism is also fighting for. It's not just for me and for my walk home, but for every woman. That's what I meant when I, at the beginning when I said that there's something in it for everyone and we're fighting for everyone. And I think just because, people are tired of the conversation here, the conversation is going to keep happening because this is now no longer about me. And I think as we see economic crises and the climate crisis get even worse, feminism is going to have to become more of a conversation in terms of finding solutions for those issues, because they are inherently feminist issues that I won't bear the forefront of, but women in the rest of the world will.
Yeah. I'd like to take a moment as well to just address that to the men listening, including myself, and to all men, we need to be better and we need to respect and treat women with more care and in a way that is treating them like you treat everyone else. Women are the most precious thing and women are the bearers of life. I don't need to say anything else. Women are extremely important, and it doesn't always have to be about gender. So let's stop making it about man versus woman or men and women. We're all the same species. We're just born with different parts, and we need to make women feel seen. We need to make women feel heard. We need to make women feel safe. And we're still living in a world where women don't feel safe when they walk in certain places. They don't go to certain places because they don't feel safe. They don't feel comfortable. That's still an issue that we need to fix. Don't treat a woman like she's somewhat of an object or something that you can just look at. That's absolutely not what she is. You wouldn't want that if that was directed towards you.
I'd go one step further and say that this is as important as it is to empower and protect and amplify women's voices. That change has to come from men.
Yes.
Like, undeniably. And that's when that conversation about why do you feel so personally attacked by the feminist movement comes into play. Because you might not have done anything to a woman, but your friends probably have, your colleagues might have, your family members might have. And complicity is key in perpetrating those cycles. The people who do nothing in the face of injustice allow it to continue, actively allow it to continue. So when you say things like, and I'm going to challenge you here, Noah, when you say things like, we don't have to make everything about gender, I think that alleviates some of the responsibility a little bit, because we should be making it about gender, because it is about this recognition of gender politics and power dynamics. And that is to do with gender and this acknowledgement that what kind of more subconscious views am I hoarding towards women? Why do I feel like something has to be in it for me instead of just believing that equality is a good thing? Am I listening to my female friends? Am I calling out my male friends when they say something dodgy? What kind of views do I absorb on social media? It has to start with this inward reflection to stop those views embryonizing in the first place.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I want to clarify that point, because I think I was looking at it from a more humanist perspective in terms of of course, we have our subconscious thoughts and bias and associations and assumptions and stereotypes that can be formed through conditioning and through our own nurture and background and environment and upbringing. But I think my encouragement to all of us in general is just to see each other more as humans. We're all just humans. And yes, of course, there's gender politics and there's a lot around gender that has to be recognized and that has to be respected and listened to. But I think my message is to not always separate men from women and have a humanist outlook. And if we think of all of us as humans that are equally complex and all going through our own thing, then I just hope from that we can treat each other in a more respectful and caring and loving way, compassionate way.
Definitely. This isn't men versus women. This is people versus the patriarchy. That's what feminism is.
Totally. Yeah. Wow. We went in deep.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's finish on this question. What is your message to Generation Z? And you can specifically cater this to young women and also to young men, on how to deal with feminism and how to push feminism into a positive and growing space in 2025 and into the future.
So I would start by saying, let's not be so scared of the word feminism. Let's not be afraid to call ourselves feminists, because I said this isn't women versus men. This is people versus the patriarchy, and the patriarchy affects everybody. I don't like that I sort of have to Trojan horse the idea for some people and hoodwink men specifically into believing that equality is a good thing. But it is a good thing because the patriarchy does affect them. And I think it's great and important that men's mental health is a conversation that's happening. But I don't like the direction that it's going in, because it is being manipulated and reframed to look as though the men's mental health crisis is a direct result of feminism. Feminism is helping the men's mental health crisis. That is what is in it for you. The reason you are realizing and noticing the chokehold of masculinity that has been restraining you your entire life is because of feminism. And if fundamentally you believe that men and women deserve equal rights and equal opportunities, you are a feminist, whether you want to call yourself that or not. So let's not be so scared of it.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better. Okay. Let's move on to the Platform Z quickfire questions.
Quickfire questions. Okay.
First thing that comes to your head.
Okay.
What was the most recent thing that inspired you?
I think Stephen Graham winning his Emmy. That was very inspiring for many reasons.
So deserved. Yeah. What is your goal for this month?
I think this month I'm trying to go back to basics a bit. I think over summer you can let, the fundamentals slip away a bit, like sleeping and eating and wise financial decisions. So just reestablishing good habits and good routines, I think.
Love that. What's one bad habit that you need to get rid of?
I think my screen time. I think I need to get better at just leaving my phone for extended periods of time.
What does joy look like to you?
Anytime I'm doing something that I love, listening to music, dancing, performing, reading, these kind of conversations. Yeah.
When have you felt the most love?
I wouldn't say there's a specific time, but I think any time I'm around my friends, the love just feels palpable in every sense of the word.
I love that. Last question.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you change in today's society?
I think in terms of like immediacy and urgency, I'd say like net zero in the next 2 weeks, ideally, would be something I'd change. Yeah. Complete cut of carbon emissions.
Great.
I don't think I'm being too unrealistic.
I'm with you though. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Julia. Thank you. Thank you for coming on. And I loved this conversation and it was so important. I'm going to leave this with so many thoughts.
Thank you so much. No, I've really, really enjoyed this.
Of course. And take a minute now to talk about where people can find you, what you've got going on, what's coming up.
Wow. Where can people find me? I'm on Instagram, Julia Westrup. I'm on TikTok as well. And I've got a few fun things coming up on that side of my life. But yeah, I'm out and about, studying at the moment, but I'll be on your screens at some point, I'm sure.
And I just want to credit you as well for the work that you've been doing on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, but I've heard about what you're doing and you told me about it. And that also really inspires me. So keep doing what you're doing, Julia.
Noah. Thank you.
That'll be linked in the description as well.
Amazing.
Great. Thank you guys for listening. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.